trip was his anniversary, so congratulations to him. I believe it was 27 years with him and his wife, and congratulations to them. I hope they have a wonderful weekend. Hope you guys are doing well. I'm just going to go really quickly through the MLB slate. I'm also going to go quickly through the NBA slate in another video I'll do after this. But I just want to point out that like the NBA is on these 13 gamers this time of year. You got to be hyped and focused in every little pit, and you're not going anywhere until 10 p.m. Eastern time because everybody is technically questionable. So just keep that in mind. It's going to be kind of a mess with the NBA. But for MLB, we've got a small little slate, but some nice tournaments out there. Always ways to get different in MLB. Really like sometimes the small slates in MLB, and that includes showdowns because you can really get some advantages like just by doing things a little bit different. Like one of the things on these types of slates, I don't think you should worry too much about stacking. I think you could treat it. I don't think you should treat it like a cash game type of build, but I think you should treat it with like maybe like a 3-3-2 or a 3-3-1-1 or a 3-2-1-1-1. Something like that is more the builds you're looking for. I'll touch on FanDuel. Everybody keeps asking about that, and they're very focused on the projections, get the projections in. The projections in baseball between any of the sites are always going to be within fractional percentages. The interesting part is the ownership. And I would recommend that everybody checks out Goldie. Goldie did a video already. Goldie does the aggregate ownership for the entire industry. It's the only one out there in the entire DFS world. And I think we need to make sure that you guys are all following like Goldie's stuff and his stuff is up on SaberSim under Goldie's projections. Although I don't have it up right now, it'll be up in a little bit. I've got to talk to our guys to get it loaded. I don't know if there's something going on with it, but those of you who have the package, you certainly do have access to Goldie's projections. And any questions about that, you can tag Goldie in our Discord, and we'll make sure to get it straightened out for you. Anyway, like I said, a lot of things exciting coming up. But with all that, like I don't want to waste too much time. I want to jump right into the slate, and I'm going to share my screen and go game by game, and just let you guys know a little bit of what I'm thinking here at first glance. So I can't address Goldie's questions. Please write in Discord and ask Goldie, tag Goldie, just at Goldie. Hey, where are your projections right now? Because they should be up there. They usually will be right here. You'll see them right next to the SS ownership. They just don't happen to be this morning. So it's just something that we'll figure out. It's a technical thing, but we should have it no problem by lock. Just hard to do while I'm doing a live run through, but good to see you, Meta Alloy. Always happy to see you in here. And let's get to the slate. So from an overall perspective, I think you have a lot of options tonight. And oddly, I don't think any of them are going to be crazy carried away. David Peterson will be on the list. You know what I mean? That's all I can say. He's not my favorite pitching option, but I certainly think there's a route to him being one of the better two pitchers on the slate. He's cheaper. You get a little bit of a different build if you use him. The Dodgers are expensive, and I like that stack. I like each of their players actually quite a bit too. So I have mild interest in David Peterson. I also have mild interest in Jesus Luzardo. I think Luzardo is actually probably a little more interesting to me for the upside, but also very dangerous, and it's a dangerous lineup you're facing. That they're just going to make you work. It's not even just that they're going to hit off you; they're just going to make you work a little bit. So going through the Mets lineup, you're going to get like no ownership on anybody. I think Pete Alonso at low ownership is always going to be a guy I'm just going to plug in there. He as much power, if not the most power of anybody in baseball. And I think we should be playing a good amount of Pete Alonso whenever he's going to be lower owned. He's my favorite play from this game. I think that Marte and Pham are also kind of interesting, and just as a one-off type thing. But just going through my early build, these are guys I'll include in my builds. On the Miami side, hitting wise, harder to find things that feel as good, but that you do have some value. Particularly Garrett Cooper stands out for me as potential value. So I will leave Garrett Cooper in my list right now. And I don't actually think I have anybody else that I desperately want to play. I think Soler you could make an argument for, but those are the only guys I'm going to chalk. And then I guess just chisel them every day. Like we just believe in the guy's talent. But these are not priority plays for me. They're not going to end up in my core. I'm just going through as if, this is my first look, and the guys, I'll whittle it down a little bit and obviously have that stuff for you guys live at 5:40 Eastern time. We're going to be going an hour before slate's lock. That's going to be the standard. So it'll be 5:40 Eastern time tonight. So I think this is an interesting spot. You obviously have the toughest matchup probably of the night, whether you want to call the Dodgers or Houston. Take your pick. Christian Javier is pretty clearly I think the top, like the consensus top play. I think Lance Lynn is super interesting at no ownership, even against a tough Houston team. You look over there at the Houston lineup, and yeah, this is Houston. They're tough. This is not the same lineup that we're used to seeing from Houston. There's some weaker spots in here, and at least some guys who are yet to prove themselves at this field. You're going to have both Maldonado, Diaz in the lineup tonight, probably. You've got Jake Myers in there, Dubon down at the bottom. This isn't, it's not like the days where the number 9 hitter for Houston's hitting 320. There's no, we don't have no Brantley and no Correa. Just the whole lineup is a little bit softer. And I think as a low-owned option on a smaller slate, Lance Lynn is certainly, you could argue, he's the best pitcher on this slate. I think that he's right there with these guys. I'm not sure that I would say he definitely has more of a leash, though, historically. And he's also a guy who keeps the ball on the ground, can get out of innings pretty easily. So I think Lance Lynn is a very interesting tournament play, and maybe somebody I end up using even in my big one on DK, just because I think he's going to have significantly lower ownership than the others. I do like Javier. I also think the White Sox are going to have a good season. They're still not totally fully with their best guys yet, but hard to want to attack too hard the White Sox lineup. Yes, these guys are going to stay in my early, hey, I'm open to them, but I'm not particularly excited about any of these guys, to be honest with you. Just really tough to pick on Javier and the Houston bullpen in general. On the Houston side, while I do certainly like the Lance Lynn as a low-owned play, I do think that you've got an argument here for like Houston's going to have going to be fairly popular, and against Lance Lynn that can really work out, and it can really bust you also because the way the ability to keep the ball on the ground. But Diaz as a minimum cost catcher is going to be hard not to have a lot of interest in. Dubon is cheap and makes the rest of the lineup work. You get the bottom of the order in there. Not really getting to Myers. Just a reminder to everybody, outfield is always going to be the most loaded position, so you want to kind of treasure those spots, or if you're going to use value, use the really high upside value guys. Jose Abreu, I would be one of the guys who I would like potentially against Javier here. Alvarez, Tucker, they're always going to make my first looks, but none of these guys probably make my later lineups. And I do think it's a very strong lineup 1 through 5. I think it gets a little bit shakier after that, even though I believe in Diaz as a talent going forward. But yeah, going to have some interest in Houston every day, especially on small slates. San Diego, this game, ugly weather for San Diego. Like early in the season is usually the time where you can actually play San Diego and feel pretty good about it. But you look at the weather here, it's 56 degrees, the wind's blowing in, almost 10 miles an hour. I just feel like I'm not going to try to be over the field on this. This is probably where I try to stay away from. And it's kind of a shame because I would like to pick on Nick Martinez, even though I don't think Nick Martinez is that bad. I just don't think he's the equivalent of a quality number 2 starter, which is what he's basically being treated as today. So I'm actually not getting to much Colorado, just partly because of that. The guys I want are the righties. If there was one guy I had to play, it would be Ryan McMahon. And that is probably the highest level of interest. I guess you can throw Charlie Blackmon in the mix, but McMahon being the most interesting to me. San Diego with the big run total, and I don't even disagree with the run total. I just don't know how they're going to get there because you have this righty-dominated lineup, and you've got the wind blowing in, 10 miles an hour from left field on an already cold night. It's going to take some real power to get it out there. The San Diego lineup certainly has that. So I'm not going to cross off these. I'm not going to write off these guys. Nelson Cruz. I'm not going to write off. Obviously, Juan Soto is never going to be a write-off for me. In fact, these ownerships are a little bit lower than I thought. If this actually stays the case, I might actually talk myself being more into the San Diego lefties. But that is what I want to do. Is I would prefer to play the lefties over the righties. They're all going to make my early list. Because that wind's blowing in from left field, though, I'm going to try to focus more on the lefties. And then I'll talk a little bit more. We're going to see more and more stolen bases. We saw a bunch yesterday. So trying to play the stolen base guys versus the home run guys early in the year is probably a decent route to go. Just hard for me to get my brain around it because I'm so used to playing for power. But and we still want the power. Don't get me wrong. But we are much more open to the what's it called, the speed than we used to. Or it's just much more of a priority than it used to. Put it that way. I'm curious where Ray's ownership ends up today. I am absolutely not going to cross off Robbie Ray here. I think this is it's a Cleveland team that we've seen it hit at times. I like the run projected total. Robbie Ray is all over the map, so I will definitely, you can make sure I'll have a Cleveland stack somewhere in my lineups, and you can make sure I'll have Robbie Ray in some of my lineups. That's where I'm at with those guys. So and to answer, Kevin Wise asking a question in chat. Good to see you, Kevin. The problem is, what does that mean? What this guy's saying? Your first chat, and I know this is your pre-recorded. It's not pre-recorded. I'm live right now. I have no idea why that would even matter, but that's a new name I don't see. I feel like are there Run Pure guys going to send guys after me again, or are we going to have to deal with that? Because seriously, gets a little bit irritating when they start doing it, and it's getting to the point of where, like, if they're going to try and attack my livelihood, it's going to get really, really ugly if they want to do that. So if he's one of those guys, get the hell out of here. So my thoughts on Martinez, I'll get to that in a minute, or I'll talk about that for a minute. But I personally don't like him very much today. I know he's getting some, like, he'll be on my early radar. I guess I didn't include that before, but I'm not especially interested in him. I actually think that I should have mentioned that Kyle Freeland at low ownership is definitely in play. It's just a tough lineup he's got to face, but I mean, everybody's in play. It's just not, there's just not enough games to where we're not going to, like, consider everyone. But I'm concerned. I don't know how long he's going to go. I don't know what the, like with every pitcher, I feel like there's possible pitch count issues on the first start of the season. Usually we get the third or fourth start is where they start stretching them out. And we saw that yesterday. Plenty of guys pitched 4 innings, and 4 good innings, even 75 pitches, 80 pitches. That's all they're looking for from a lot of these guys. So spending too much on your starting pitcher outside of guys like Robbie Ray, who do have a leash, Lance Lynn usually has a leash. And that, of course, means if things are going well, they have a leash. Doesn't mean that they just got a leash no matter what. Gaddis and Robbie Ray, Robbie Ray, stack against, play him, both sides, always viable. He's going to give up he already gives up a ton of stolen bases with the pitch clock and everything. He gives up stolen bases, power, and he gets wild. These guys have got to all be in play at no ownership because of that. Nobody's getting any love on Cleveland. I think this is an awesome team to just close your eyes and say, I hope it works out. At the same time, if I had to build one lineup, I think Robbie Ray might be in that lineup. So kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth, but that's what you got to have to do sometimes in baseball in these small slates. You have to try and be willing to play both sides. I do think, again, so you have Hunter Gaddis. I don't know how long Hunter Gaddis is going to pitch tonight. It does allow you to get a little different with your build, but I don't think I'm going to end up needing to do that. I don't think you need the savings. I think you're going to see Gaddis more as he's more of a long relief guy, but that could mean 5 innings if he's pitching well. I just don't think I'm going to do it. And I don't like stacking against long relief guys, but on today's slate, we don't have a whole lot of options. And I certainly like the Seattle side of things. I am shocked to see the ownership. So right off the bat, what stands out to me is the Seattle and Cleveland ownership as far as the hitters go seems unusually low. So I will try to prioritize getting some of these sub 10 percenters in. It's hard to get low ownership on these small slates. Also, Seattle usually, look, it's still a bad hitter's park. It's better than most of them on days like early in the season because they can play in the dome. And we don't have to worry about weather, at least, and playing in 40-degree weather like some of these other guys. So Ty France, Julio Rodriguez, who else do we like here? Okay. Oh, Kyle Raleigh is the only one who probably will get ownership. I'm a sucker for taking some shots on Kalinick as a cheap option, and then Teoscar. I'm not going to cross any of these guys out. So I at first look, I'm starting to think this game feels the most like game stackable to me. I like both sides of the offenses, and it's mostly to do with ownership, which is really the name of the game in baseball, especially on small slates. Arizona and the Dodgers. Dustin May is pretty stretched out. He threw the most pitches of any Dodger in the preseason in his last start. I do like Dustin May. They do tend to be careful with him, but the fact that he was able to throw the most pitches of any Dodger in a preseason start in his last time out does make me have some interest. I'm not going to play Merrill Kelly. I don't think. It's just interesting to see how low this ownership is for the size of the slate. The Dodgers have had some really good history and some really bad ones against Merrill Kelly. He's had some gems against us before. Not gems, just decent games, which I guess for Merrill Kelly is a gem. But I'm into the idea of kind of like, I don't know, maybe throwing him in like in your 150 mixes to get like 10, 15% of them, just based as an ownership play. And that's really the name of the game on these things. I don't have any individuals that I feel good or love on the Arizona side of things. If I had to pick one, it would probably be Jake McCarthy because he's cheap. And I think that Ketel Marte. But, I mean, I don't feel Corbin Carroll, I guess you can include in the mix of the same cheap thing. But none of them are like standing out to me as really awesome plays. Alec Thomas down at the bottom at 2,400. They're really cheap. I just don't feel great about them. So it's not a priority for me, but I'm trying to highlight some guys who maybe are a little bit off the board. James Outman, this guy's going to have a career. I've been saying it. And nice to see him hit a home run on opening day. I'll go back to the well and take another shot as long as he's cheap, especially where I'm going to, be heavier on Dodgers stacks or mini stacks. So I am going to be heavy like on the Dodgers and even at high ownership. I'm going to be overweight probably everybody on the Dodgers today, just to be real. I do like the Dodgers the best. I think Merrill Kelly's a guy I love attacking, and when they meet the Dodgers, it's hard not to like them. But I would be mixing your Dodgers with the Seattle-Cleveland game just because of the ownership and no real weather issues like wind blowing in and 50-degree temps because you're playing indoors, even though it's not a great hitter's park. So that's sort of my overall look. In terms of some individual plays, I will post my my early look. My early builds a little bit later. But what you can see I'm trying to do every day when I do this stuff is I don't know. Oh, I clicked on some more guys' names because we were going through them. But I'm going to try and do a spend up and a cheapo at each position that I put as my core. So just depending on your build, you'll have that option. I'll also post my early first builds. And in baseball, they tend to stay more similar than they do in basketball because we know in basketball everything changes. In baseball, if somebody's ruled out, no big deal. Just change it up a little bit. So it should be a fun slate. It's a small one. Maybe we can get off to a banging start. I did well on FanDuel yesterday. I didn't do so well on DraftKings. Speaking of which, going to jump over to FanDuel, talk about that for a second, and see what we got here. Remind me, I've got to change the backdrop here for my baseball. Sorry, I'm over on FanDuel. I'm just going to take a look at the individual differences. Like Nelson Cruz, you can see right off the bat, Cruz, Peralta, super cheap. Garrett Cooper, super cheap. As far as like pitchers go, I think that you want to just go with the safest one here, which probably is Javier. But I certainly don't mind the idea of Dustin May, and I don't mind the idea of Robbie Ray probably those three will end up being my main guys. Maybe I'll take one shot on Lance Lynn. Let's see. We got Martinez. Last spring start was 46 pitches. Yeah, I wasn't really interested in Martinez anyway, so I'm not. This is a lot of talk of Martinez that I personally wasn't going to play him. He's obviously on the list because there's everybody there, but he's not a guy I'm like trying to get to. I don't think he's going to be like especially popular or not. I personally will probably not be doing it. He's also not. Look, I know that some people like his talent and everything, and he's shown some good stuff. Like, I don't think that highly of Nick Martinez yet, and he's gonna have to change my mind. But like, I would have him as probably the 10th, 11th best pitcher on this slate, and there's only not the 10th, 11th. Sorry, 7th, 8th best pitcher on the slate. There's only 10 pitchers. I do like. I don't mind any shots on Freeland, K9, but why would we want to like? Do you need the savings on FanDuel? You really don't. You have a terrible matchup. He's a good pitcher. He's a better pitcher than he gets credit for. Let's put it that way. Yeah, if you want to do it, I just don't really see the reason. Like, you just want to take I know K9 because he's a what's it called only. He's a FanDuel only guy usually. On FanDuel, I don't think that's where I would be wanting to get my exposure, but maybe. I mean, there is no ownership on him. He does have decent enough stuff. He's pitched. Yeah. I wouldn't cross anybody off, I guess I would say, but I didn't find the need to get to him. So I'm sort of, but I think we're going to see this with a lot of these guys. I mean, most of these guys haven't thrown like a crazy amount of pitches yet, and I don't think they're going to let them do that on their first start of the season. So with that said, guys, it should be a fun one tonight. Let's get some money, and I will see you guys live at 5:40 Eastern time. All my premium stuff will be in the Discord a little bit later. Will be on the site a little bit later.